Welcome back to another quick presidential election prediction. Today I will be doing it between Senator Josh Hawley of Missouri and Secretary of Transportation Pete Buttigieg and former mayor of South Bend in Indiana. Before I start the prediction, make sure to go over and subscribe to the YouTube channel. We are nearing 200 subscribers, almost 10 away from 200, so go subscribe and if you support it, and if you like watching these awesome videos. Anyway, let's get right into the prediction and start off with safe Democrat states. I'm not really going to go into the margins in like Oregon, although it will be closer than the margins in like California. But yeah, I say 180 electoral votes will be safe for Pete Buttigieg, and for Josh Hawley, let's see, it's probably going to be the usual 125, but gotta go. There we go. The usual 125 safe electoral votes for the Republicans compared to 180 for the Democrats. Obviously with the updated electoral vote map and changed electoral votes for each state. Texas, I'm pretty sure I gained like 2. I kind of forgot that I think I actually gained 6. I actually don't. I think it was at 36, but I don't remember actually. Maybe it was at 38. But yeah, I kind of forgot 2020 electoral map already, which is a bit strange. Anyway, let's get right into the likely Democrat races. I still would see Colorado and New Mexico being likely for the Democrats. I'm not going to include Virginia. I think Josh Hawley and Pete Buttigieg both would be competitive in the suburban areas in Virginia. And with that recent victory with Glenn Youngkin, the Democrats could be a bit more vulnerable there. I also see Maine's 1st district being a likely race for the Democrats. Now, for likely Republican states, I think Hawley would pick up Ohio and Iowa and Maine 2nd. I think that he has that appeal in that Rust Belt rural area, up there. He is from Missouri. He's, within that vicinity of the Rust Belt and the rural areas, farming areas, which you see in Iowa and Ohio and Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Minnesota, and even Virginia. Hawley is in that very, very good area where Republicans are able to pick up states that they need to win, like the Rust Belt, which is crucial for them to win elections. They need to have to win the Rust Belt. Unfortunately, that makes it so it's harder he's not as popular in the southern states, like maybe even Georgia or even Texas. But let's see. All right. For lean Republicans, Democrat states, it'll be Maine at large. Buttigieg still's there, pretty good there. And New Hampshire, I think he's going to be pretty good with the East Coast, Northeast. That is people that he can resonate with, I believe. I mean, he did win the Iowa primary, so, given that to Hawley. But, I don't think in a general election Buttigieg will particularly do good in Iowa. But New Hampshire, he did do pretty good in the primary for the Democrats there. I think you can continue that streak, winning up there by a lean margin. Not tilt, but, it's a lean margin, so it's a victory nonetheless for the Democrats. I also see Nebraska 2nd going to Buttigieg by about 3 to 4 points. Not as big as it did for Biden. I think that was a lot of just suburban women angry with Trump in voting for Biden by such a large margin, like what we saw for Trump in Maine 2nd. Buttigieg probably ended up winning by about 3 points. 3 or 4 points. I also see Virginia, similar margins to Nebraska 2nd, 3 to 4 points, suburban women, although Hawley is slightly more popular there. Virginia is still a Democrat state. I don't think one Republican victory there with the governorship will, make it easier. I also see Minnesota going by a lean margin for Pete Buttigieg. I think that Josh Hawley probably will make it down to about 2 points, a 2-point victory for Pete Buttigieg. I think Hawley's pretty popular there in the Missouri area. And I consider that vicinity, really, it's a good vicinity because it's in close proximity to a lot of states, but I consider that mostly part of that Rust Belt industrial area and farming areas as well, Iowa, Ohio, as I mentioned before. So I do think Buttigieg will hold on to Minnesota, but it will narrow up continually, as we have seen from past elections. He'll end up winning by about maybe 3 points. And that is all of the lean Democrat states that I have. Now for lean Republican states, Texas will lean Republican. Buttigieg will slightly narrow it up, but I don't think he'll do any good with Hispanics there in Texas. I just don't think that Buttigieg has that support in Texas with Hispanic voters. Josh Hawley, not really so much, but they have been increasingly voting Republican. Or not voting, but registering Republican and voting as well. And I still think Republicans will hold on to the Texas race pretty much no matter what until at least 2024. So Hawley holds on by a lean margin. I just don't think Buttigieg has that appeal down there either in Texas and Georgia and Arizona. So it'll probably end up balancing out pretty well. Florida, I also see being a lean margin, increased Hispanic support. I don't know. Like, I think that maybe Buttigieg will get a slightly larger vote in the elderly, but I still think that that won't really significantly change much. I think Florida will end up going to Hawley by about 2 points, maybe 3 points. I also see Hawley winning North Carolina by a lean margin. You have a lot of those suburban areas that will help out Hawley. I think that they will slightly narrow up and increase, Africa slightly increase. But, the slight increase significantly harms Democrats because a large percentage of their voting base is black. Slight increase in the black support and in Hispanic support in North Carolina. That will also help out Hawley. But we will have to see what happens in 2022 nonetheless. And I also see Josh Hawley winning Wisconsin by a lean margin. That state has continued to trend Republican, and I think that Hawley will finally flip that state completely to the Republicans after his victory in 2024. It would be pretty hard for the Democrats to win back that race in a significant time. Anyway, for tilt Democrat states, Nevada will be a tilt Democrat. Michigan will be a tilt Democrat. Both of these states. Nevada, I think that Buttigieg will slightly hold on to it, although Nevada, actually, I do see leaning up. We are narrowing up and possibly going to the Republicans. I'm very keen on seeing what happens in that race in 2022 with Catherine Cortez Masto. As you saw, Republicans have been doing significantly well. Fundraising, they're raising millions of dollars after the more left-wing base of the Democrat Party took over the party there. Harry Reid obviously upset about that, had some words to say on the news about that. So he clearly thinks that Democrats are not going to perform as well in Nevada. But we will have to see what happens at the moment. We haven't had any results from that state yet, so you can't really make such a conclusion. Michigan, I think, will stay in the Democrat category at least for one more election. Hawley will narrow it up more, but I still think that they will hold on. Biden won it still by about 2.5%. Buttigieg will end up winning maybe 0.7, 0.8%. Michigan, very, very close state, but Buttigieg holds on to the race. For the southern states, I think that Hawley will actually be able to flip back Arizona. I don't think that the Arizona race is set in stone. I think that not the Arizona race, but the Arizona state in its trending to the Democrats is set in stone. I think that Republicans can very much win that race back and that state back. You saw in 2020, Trump barely lost that state by 0.3%. Republicans can win this back. It's not going to endlessly trend to the Democrats. We'll see what happens in 2022 with Mark Kelly. And you very much could get a Republican victory out of that state, and that could very much shock the Democrats. But we will see what happens there. I think Hawley very much can win that state back, increase the Hispanic support for Republicans, and I think that trend will continue in the next 3 years as we approach 2024. However, I think Buttigieg will hold on to Georgia. I think that Stacey Abrams campaigning for the Democrat, and frankly, no matter who their nominee is, Buttigieg will hold on to Georgia by a tilt margin. I just think that Georgia, I don't think it is as blue. I mean, it's not a blue state, or is as even as purple as we see it at the moment. But I do think that Democrats will continue to slightly edge those races out. I do think that Herschel Walker could win in 2022, and maybe that'll have some implications for this race, but I just think that Buttigieg would be able to hold on to Georgia for at least one more election cycle. Or not one more, what am I saying? For this election cycle. Although Hawley probably will do better in the suburban areas, for at least compared to Donald Trump. I'm not saying that he'll win the suburban areas. He'll do better compared to Trump or other Republican candidates. But Buttigieg, I still think, will narrowly edge that state out. Now, for the final state, which is Pennsylvania, which has pretty much been the deciding state for so many of the elections so far, who will it go to? I think that Josh Hawley will win the state of Pennsylvania by the narrowest of margins, 0.2, 0.3%. It will go to the Republicans, flipping parties again. Biden won by 1.2%. Hawley in that area has that Rust Belt appeal, has that appeal that he can resonate with those industrial workers, and he can increase some African American support for Republicans, obviously depending on the vice presidential nominee. But I think that Pennsylvania will narrowly go to the Republicans in a Hawley versus Buttigieg race. So this will be one of the closest elections you will see, that I predict, in a 263 electoral vote count. But Josh Hawley narrowly edges out the race against Pete Buttigieg, becoming the 47th president of the United States. President Hawley, you could say, 275 electoral votes to 263. Anyway, Please let me know what you think of my state calls in the comments below. If you disagree, let me know, and I will, do my best to respond to your comments. And make sure to like the video and subscribe to the YouTube channel. We are, as I said, getting really close to 200 subscribers, so go ahead and subscribe. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching, and make sure to stay tuned for more videos. Thank you.